Hey everybody, and welcome to today's News Tonight, the weeknight news show where we're joined by special guests and our lovely patrons to discuss the day's gaming news. I'm your host, Ash Paulson, and I'm joined today by my wonderful friends and GVG co-founders, Derek Bittner and Steve Bowling, along with another dear friend of mine and our first ever returning guest, Shesez of Boundary Break. Shesez, thanks so much for coming to do this with us again. You seem to like us enough that you don't mind coming back.
The pleasure is 100% all mine, you guys. Thank you so much for bringing me back. It's a huge honor to be the first as well. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, we're just happy to have you here. And as I mentioned before the show when we were chatting, you recently did a region break video on Earthbound, which I thought was amazing. And Region Break is one of your newer series over on your channel, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Well, let me plug it real quick. It's a show where we look at the differences between the U.S. version and a version from another region, whether it be PAL or, in the last two cases, Japan. So I just did Earthbound. I just did a Link's Adventure. And it's just been comparing all the little differences, whether it be trying to avoid controversies or just try to kind of blend a little better into American culture, which is something they were more, proactive about back in the 90s. Now, these days, they just kind of accept the fact that, hey, games come from other places other than America, so you see it a lot less. But with these older games, it's kind of crazy what they'll do, what lengths they'll go to kind of try to attract an American audience.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I can speak just on my own behalf and say that your Earthbound video was awesome, and everybody should go check out Region Break and, of course, Boundary Break. So do that at some point, whenever you can, as soon as possible. But before we continue, we do have a sponsor for today's episode, and that is the Game Orb. The Game Orb is a fledgling YouTube channel focused mostly on Nintendo content. It's currently running Let's Plays and unboxes for games such as Splatoon 2, Super Mario Bros. 35, and more. So please make sure to subscribe to the Game Orb, and we're going to go ahead and post that link in the chat for you in a live audience. But if you're watching the VOD version, that'll also be in the description. So please check out the Game Orb's channel. And
here's the amazing thing. I'm so proud of you guys. Game Orb is up to 150 subscribers. Now we're well on our way to 200. Let's do it.
Let's get to 200, 300, and above. Let's just keep adding to the Game Orb subs. So thank you all for not only supporting us, but for supporting the Game Orb. And with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the news. And our first bit of news involves Pokemon. So let's go ahead and get that up on screen.
Who would have guessed?
I know, right? So, obviously, Pokemon Gen 4 Remakes Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were recently announced, but there has been some confusion or just people are unsure if there's going to be any Pokemon Platinum content within the game. Fortunately, it seems as though the trailer does include an NPC that is specifically from Pokemon Platinum. And Derek, I like Pokemon. Steve, I know you do as well. But Derek, you are our resident Pokemon master. No pun intended. So maybe you can shed a little more light on this for us.
So here's why people are so curious about whether there's any Pokemon Platinum content in there, because that was a big point of contention with the Gen 3 remakes, which I thought were very good, but lacked the content that was included in Pokemon Emerald. So you had no Battle Frontier, which was a major part for a lot of people in Gen 3. They loved the Battle Frontier. And, well, Platinum has a lot of similar stuff that was only in that game. So people are really hoping that content makes it through. And so far, it seems possible. Again, thanks to this one NPC that's popped in there. It's this blonde girl in Floroma Town. And there's nobody there in the originals, but in the Platinum, there is a girl there. And what do you know? She's there. I've also seen another bit of evidence where the layout of flowers, and I think in the same city, is exactly like it is in Platinum, not like it is in Diamond and Pearl. So a lot of people are hoping that that's the case here, that we're actually, like, even though we're like kind of Diamond and Pearl, they're more based on Platinum with differences of Diamond and Pearl, which I think would be the best of both worlds and people would be really enjoying. Now we just have to see what they think about the art style.
Right. Which seems to be a major point of contention among people so far. Seems to be very highly divided down the middle. Some people are like, "Oh, it looks great. It's very faithful." Others seem to think it's a downgrade from Sword and Shield. Shesez, you are of course our special guest. Do you have any thoughts on Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl? It's
as far as the art style or the news that just came out.
General.
Well, I think it's great that people notice the extra content, and I really hope that's a true indication that you're going to get the platinum content. Again, I love were you able to figure that out for yourself, Derek, before anybody else? Because you're almost known for this sort of thing.
I didn't have the time to take a close look at the trailer, and I am not good enough to know there's an NPC in this version, but not in this version. I would have had to replay a lot.
Study the trailer, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's really cool. As far as the art style goes, I get people's frustration. I kind of felt a similar sentiment with Link's Awakening. But, it's kind of cool that you get the best of both worlds. They announced 2 different games, one with a completely different art style, and then you get one that's a little more retro. I guess, I do have a bit of sympathy for the people that played the original Diamond and Pearl and wanted something much bigger, a much grander vision for a game that they grew up with, and they're not going to get it. It's more like a translation from one console to another, whereas something like Sword and Shield feels like, a true reimagining of the Pokemon world. So, visually at least.
Right.
Yeah. So, so, I mean, I'm not the super Pokemon fan. I play them from time to time. So thankfully, I didn't have a passionate thought one way or another. But I guess that's kind of where I fall in line as far as other people's opinions on it goes.
Oh, thank God, not in the Pokemon fandom.
Right.
I can't.
Go ahead, Steve.
Real quick,
Go ahead, Steve.
I can't think of another fandom where you would get what looks to be a 100% faithful remake down to the art style, and people would be angry. Look at Final Fantasy VII Remake, where people were mad about all the changes, and then Game Freak's like, we changed nothing. We just made it 3D, and everyone's like, how dare you? How dare you give me exactly what I had? So
yeah,
I think
I've seen a few people say about how it always felt like an event whenever these remakes happen, because going from original Game Boy to Game Boy Advance with Fire Red Leaf Green, going from again basically Game Boy to DS with Heart Gold and Soul Silver, with some amazing stuff that people are still asking for that we only kind of just got with the DLC for Sword and Shield, as far as the Pokemon falling behind you. People love that feature, and it did not come back for a long time. And then being able to match the world of Ruby and Sapphire to what was new at the time with what was it, Gen 6, I think, at the time, or somewhere around there. It always felt like an upgrade. So I can see people's frustrations wanting to see Sinnoh in the style of Sword and Shield and just seeing how much more beyond they could go. But I think the problem is when you get into that level of depth, it's a lot harder. Basically, you're not going to be able to have the one-to-one that you had in those previous remakes.
Yeah, I guess I have a hard time understanding the outrage, because we're also getting Pokemon Legends, and that is a massive undertaking. It is the most unique-looking Pokemon game I can even think of, in the history of Pokemon, I think.
In a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like, okay, it's easier for me to accept that the remake is less ambitious, because they are working on this wildly ambitious title at the same time. So I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'll pick up Diamond or Pearl or one of those two, and that'll be kind of a great stopgap until this game that I'm really, really wanting shows up.
It kind of I think part of it is that the Pokemon Company keeps setting different expectations all over the place. I'm thinking of the Let's Go series, where graphically, at least, I feel like it was more impressive than what we're getting here with Diamond and Pearl. The character models were adult, true to scale, even outside of battle and stuff like that. Even the Pokemon were true to scale. Onyx was towering over players and stuff. I don't know if that's going to return with this game. I hope it does, but I think maybe that's where a lot of muddled expectations come from, is that I think at least in one case, a remake has shown that they can do better.
Right.
And so maybe that's it. I don't know. But then, of course, there's, like I said a moment ago, it was just the announcement of the new game, it's like it's night and day as far as how the two look. And maybe fans just kind of expected them to both look about the same at this point. Yeah. I think because now you have like a side-by-side comparison of a scaled-down experience versus a true AAA budgeted experience, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that the context is a bit different, right, for the Gen 4 remakes in the sense that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire maybe seemed like on their face like more upgraded remakes just from the word go, from just the the upgraded visuals and such, compared to what we're seeing in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which is an adherence to the original game's look, for maybe better and worse. But this being the Pokemon fandom and gaming in general, I guarantee you that if they had gone hog wild with this and decided to make something that was less faithful and more of a reinterpretation of Sinnoh, much more along the lines of Sword and Shield, I bet you there would be just as many people on the other side saying, "Oh, it's not faithful enough. Why? This is not my Sinnoh. This is not the Sinnoh I grew up with."
It's a tough balancing act for sure. Yeah,
it is. It's a tough balancing act, and you could certainly criticize the direction they chose to go, but I'm looking forward to it again, as I mentioned before, because Sinnoh was always a region that I found to be more forgettable. So I'm curious to see if the facelift it is getting, even if it is a very familiar one, I'm looking forward to seeing if it changes my thoughts on the generation and the region. And as Platinum goes, I never played Platinum, so if indeed Platinum content is being included in these remakes, and it seems like it is, I'm excited to experience that because I never played the original Platinum. So all good there. But I think we've talked about this as much as we can. So let's go ahead and move on to our next news stories, which involves the emulation nerds at Nerd. And of course, NERD stands for Nintendo's European Research and Development Department. And it has recently come to light that NERD, who is known for their emulation technology, had already been speculated, but Nintendo has essentially confirmed that NERD's own Nintendo GameCube technology, emulation technology, was used in the 3D All-Stars version of Super Mario Sunshine. Now, Steve, I know you are a resident tech guru, so I assume you have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're not familiar with NERD, they are well known for their emulation. They built the emulator that powers both the NES Classic and the Super NES Classic, which are really, really great emulators. They run very, very accurately. It's a weird page for Nintendo to put up, first off. It just seems like for such a historically opaque company to just, out of nowhere, for seemingly no reason, put up a page that's like, hey, NERD did the Super Mario 3D All-Stars GameCube emulator. That just seems like such an odd public statement to make, but one that I think everybody assumed was the case, because Nintendo's not going to farm out creation of an emulator to a third party. And I think if they had, we would have all known about it. It would have come out some other way. But, I mean, I don't know that this was... this had historically some issues, because if you remember, when 3D All-Stars first came out, there was a bug in this emulator. When you were in the bonus stages, it would display what are called the developer cubes in those areas. So you'd see these like kind of untextured weird cubes just hanging out in all the bonus areas. And if you didn't know better, and I honestly, when I first saw it, I didn't remember that this was a thing. And so I was just like, oh, I don't know why these are here. And I was like, it seems like an odd aesthetic choice to make. But it turns out that that's just like people, homebrew folks, like the folks making their own, like amateur programmers making emulators, sorted this problem out like 15 years ago. And so NERD, went back. One, it is kind of cool in the sense that you can't accuse Nintendo of using an off-the-shelf emulator because they generated a problem other people solved a long time ago. And two, I still think that there is, I don't want to say like, I don't want to be too hyperbolic, so I'm just going to say a non-zero chance that this emulator was made for more than Mario Sunshine. It really... Sure. Why would you go through the effort of writing an emulator for a one-off limited release game that is supposed to vanish at the end of this month?
Right.
I feel like there has to be more to this. We have to see more of this emulator at some point, but yeah, I mean, I really like NERD. They're not my favorite emulation house. That would be M2, the folks that did all the Sega Ages stuff. I mean, those folks are wizards. I mean, they are ridiculously skilled when it comes to emulation. So, I mean, but it's kind of cool that Nintendo has an internal division that now kind of their niche is emulating Nintendo's own old hardware, which leads me to wonder, like, I mean, are we going to get an N64 emulator on the Switch? You know, we have a GameCube emulator that runs natively on the Switch now. It's time for Nintendo to add these to Nintendo Switch Online or do something with it. But big fan of Nerd's work. I think that they do a good job, and I'm curious to see. I mean, I still don't understand the purpose of this page. The more I come back to it, I logically can't think of a reason that they had to tell the public this. Like,
right. Well, you are decidedly not as big a fan of Nerd as Doodle in the chat, because they say they would trust Nerd and M2 with their life, that's high praise, with their actual life.
I don't know.
I find my... Go ahead.
I mean, maybe if somebody had like a gun to my head and was like, quick, hire someone to write an emulator, I'd be like, all right, I know the guys, but... Anyway,
I wonder if perhaps we'll see Nerd's work utilized in the still, I think, inevitable Metroid Prime trilogy for Switch.
Please.
I wonder if we'll see their emulation tech utilized for Metroid Prime 1 and 2. Who knows? But I mean, it seems as though, like you were saying, Steve, why go to all that trouble just for 3D All-Stars, just for Mario Sunshine, when it's going to be it's going to go off sale at the end of the month, presumably. So... yeah, hopefully we'll see some GameCube emulation, some more GameCube emulation pop up either via GameCube Online or in Metroid Prime Trilogy. Derek and Shesez, I haven't had much of a chance to get your thoughts on this yet. Anything you want to add?
I mean, if I was to speculate as to why they would go for the trouble, Steve, I guess my only guess would be to prevent any speculation as to that off-market emulator, you know, like, because there's been drama in the past about Nintendo employees using emulators in certain aspects, like proof of it. Like, for example, WarioWare used an emulator at one point for, I think, a Punch-Out minigame or something like that, and people that did data mining could see like the top bar of the emulator essentially clipped out of bounds and stuff. Wasn't me, I didn't expose him, but but yeah, stuff like that. So I mean, I can't even confirm if there was any conversation like that in web forums or whatever, but I could see it being a preventative measure, you know. It's like they think they got caught with the idea of using an emulator, and so to just kind of dispel any conversation that may suggest otherwise, they may have just wanted to make an official confirmation, you know. Maybe. Sure. That's just a shot.
I don't want to give myself too much hope, so I'm going to go with Shesez's idea here, because the idea of like, sweet, more GameCube stuff coming. That'd be awesome. Nope. Put that hype back in check.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's certainly a safe. You don't want to shoot for the moon in terms of what Nintendo might do with GameCube emulation, because
I still have hope too.
On that front so many times.
I do have hope for that. I just don't have hope. I mean, like, knowing Nintendo, they could just be like throwing this in the vault for a generation or two before they actually start using it again. But they'll have it, you know. Yeah.
True. Well, before we move on to our next news story, I just want to extend a very warm welcome to Alessia and Mario 8A in our live audience. Who, Alessia, you're one of our newest EPs. One of our newest live audience members and EPs. But also Mario 8A, I don't recognize your name either. So welcome to both of you.
Alessia is actually an existing member of the GV gang who has changed her name.
Oh, got it. Didn't realize you changed your name. Okay, very cool. Well, welcome under your new name as well, then.
Yeah. Real quick, I do want to add a quick addendum to this to kind of piggyback on what Shesez was talking about, Nintendo and emulation.
Sure.
There was a point, and I don't remember what the outcome of this was, but back in 2017, there was some serious debate about whether Nintendo had just gone out to the internet and downloaded a ROM for one of the older Mario games. And then used that ROM they found basically on Google to make the virtual console version of said Mario game. And I don't remember how it played out, but I remember our good friend Spawnwave did a video on it. Eurogamer had an article on it. I think it even reached IGN and Kotaku at one point. I think Nintendo had to come out and make a statement that they did not pirate their own game. But so yeah, it is definitely weird. I do appreciate that point, because it could just be as simple as that. Like, hey, we made our own emulator, we didn't steal one. Here's the proof or whatever. But yeah, I could get that.
I just hate the idea that, I mean, yes, you can make the laziness argument, sure, even if they did just go out and download a ROM. But to be accused of pirating your own game and stealing an emulator, or I mean,
well, the thing is, it's not so much the fact of stealing or pirating your own game. It's more like Nintendo stops us from doing it. Look what they're doing. That's what they're getting
but at
away.
the same time, they're the IP rights holder, so I still don't feel like that argument.
I mean, no,
holds much
but you know
water.
how people act, so that's totally what it is. It's like
Yeah.
Nintendo is doing what they say we can't.
For me,
It's funny because on this particular subject, I agree with you, Ash. But then, someone could turn around and make this claim like, well, I put effort into it. I worked on that. Why can't I? Why is it different when an artist makes fan art and a company uses that? It's like,
sure.
Where's the separation between the two? I guess for some people.
If you go through the effort, I mean, let's be clear. Writing an emulator requires a ridiculous amount of skill, especially a well-optimized one that runs games properly. If somebody were to just take that for free and package it and sell it, I'd be upset. But the thing that concerned me about this particular 2017 story was if Nintendo has to go out and grab a ROM for one of their own games, what does that mean for the preservation of the things that they've created?
Yeah.
That they had to go find it on the internet instead of just, I don't know, pulling it from your own archives. I would hope Nintendo would have all these ROMs, the original versions stored somewhere, certainly at least on a cartridge, but hopefully the development resources used. And I think over time we've learned that Nintendo archives a lot more than I think some of us thought they did, thanks to leaks and hacks and stuff like that. We now know that Nintendo, they definitely keep records. So, I would be hopeful, but I do need to go back and research that story someday and figure out what the end result was, because I'm sure somebody found the answer. I just remember the kind of furor around that at the time.
Right. And I mean, and you bring up a good point. It's a bad look for any number of reasons were Nintendo to just go out and download a ROM of their own game, like you were saying, Steve. And of course, emulation, as some people are saying in the chat, the code for an emulator is separate from the code for a ROM that you're emulating. So it is a bit more of a gray area. So there are so many different ways to look at this. But with that said, we should probably keep things moving to our next story, which involves Elden Ring, the big story of the day. All right, so Elden Ring footage has been leaked, but here's the thing: it's really low quality footage. It's off screen, it's off camera, blurry, low resolution, but people are freaking out about it regardless. And I will come right out and admit I'm not personally invested in Elden Ring. It's not really my kind of game. I'm not looking forward to it like that. But at the same time, even if I was, I don't think I'd be that concerned. I've seen the footage. I've watched it on loop a few times now, as I assume you guys probably have. It's low-quality off-camera footage. I don't know if there's anything to judge. Well, I do know there isn't anything to judge yet. But, Shesez, what do you think about this so far?
Well, I love Dark Souls. I played all three of them, and I played Demon Souls and stuff like that, just as a background. I played through some of Bloodborne, and I did not play Sekiro. So this new one, it's definitely got a new direction. One of the first things that caught me immediately off guard was the blue skies, and also just the trailer presentation too. It didn't feel quite From Software-y, if that makes sense. It didn't immediately set off those vibes that you certainly get from Bloodborne, and to a lesser, but not too much of a lesser extent, Sekiro. So I think, are people having a negative reaction, is what you're implying?
Or there's been a bit of an explosion of this looks terrible. This, it's not looking visually up to snuff, and I don't really know.
I don't know where they get that idea. No, it does look good. Yeah, it's just it looks like a different direction from Software. So I think I want to know more about it. So that's a good start. It's the very first trailer, and it was a leaked first trailer. So as a From Software fan, I'm pretty excited. I don't know. Again, maybe this negative reaction is coming from the idea that there's like blue skies and stuff like that, which you don't see from the dark and gritty From Software titles that you normally do.
It doesn't have dark in the title. That's why it's blue.
Right. So this Elden Ring, I think I have still pretty good expectations after seeing that leaked trailer, personally.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't impressed with the first bit of trailer footage I watched. I mean, even like I can definitely see why people would have been down on it, just because it looks a little rough. But I was also like, it's early. They didn't mean to show this yet, so whatever. It's also off camera, so who cares? But looking at the second bit, we have the dragon swooping in and two guys with pierced chest pulling a cart or something like that. I was like, there's some really interesting art design going on here that I am intrigued by. And I have not played any of the Dark Souls, Demon Souls to completion or anything like that. I want to get into them, but just haven't had a chance yet. And you know, this is also the collaboration with George R.R. Martin, and say what you will about Game of Thrones, I still enjoy the books, at least to what they've gone up to this point. So I'm curious how those minds combine into what we might see here. I mean, it sucks for the developers because it's obviously not the best first impression to have, but it has to excite people that, hey, apparently stuff is coming. It's on the way. So that's nice.
Right.
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
not
and I mean, and to be
ahead.
fair to fans and to Elden Ring's audience, to be fair, it has been almost 2 years since we've seen hide nor hair of this game. It was first announced back in June 2019. It's now March 2021. So, you know, a lot of people are obviously really, really hungry and wanting any sort of update on this game. And so for the first update you get in almost 2 years to be a low-quality, blurry trailer, maybe not, you know, the best way to drum up hype. At the same time, though, I do think it's important to keep expectations in check because you know that what you're looking at is obviously low resolution, and it may also be from an older build. We don't know that for sure either. This could be from a build from months ago, a year ago. There just is so much about the context of this that we don't know, and that I think it's just way too early to render a judgment or any sort of judgment. Steve, what about you, man?
Yeah, I first saw this footage that's floating around today, I want to say 3 weeks ago. I got it like in a very third-hand kind of way. And I didn't want to talk about it because I got the sense that whoever leaked this footage really trusted the person they initially leaked it to. And I have no idea. Like, I can't tell you where it came from. I wouldn't say who I got it from because that would be a messed up thing to do. But I know that they weren't the person like originally provided the footage. So I feel really bad because the footage, I imagine whoever provided this is on the wrong end of a termination or a lawsuit, possibly even. And so I feel really bad because, I mean, I saw it and I was like, man, if it's reaching me, who I traditionally don't, you know, I'm not a Bamco leaker, so if it's gotten all the way to me, it's gotten to a lot more people than me, and I knew it was just a matter of time until this became a story. But looking at the game, I mean, one, the footage was recorded off screen from a cell phone, and I think those of us that were around in the GameCube and N64 era know that is not the best way to to get your first glimpse at a game. But I guess I kind of extrapolated a bit based on what I saw, and I don't think this game looks bad. I truly don't. I think it visually, if you're upset about I could definitely understand what Shesez is saying as a fan, not being in love with the art style, not being in love with how, you know, that it's not dark enough or grim enough in its presentation. But if you're talking about visual fidelity, I mean, I think it looks really, really good.
Same.
You know, especially when you consider that this is still an in-development game. It looks a lot cleaner than a lot of projects I've seen hit store shelves. So, I mean, I would say the visuals are enough to keep me intrigued. I don't know that it's the type of game I'll play. I tend to not do so well with these ultra hard kind of games. The challenge eventually overcomes me, and I just, you know, hey, I'll go play some Mario or something. But so I think there's definitely two sides to this coin. I don't think that folks should put a lot of stock into a trailer that was clearly filmed in someone's house on a cell phone.
Yeah.
But if you're upset with the art direction, you can definitely get enough from this video to see that the art direction either is or is not for you. And I don't think that is going to change. But again, I would really caution people, one, art direction does not entirely make a game. You know, people thought Wind Waker was trash because it looked too cartoony, and it turned out to be one of the best games in the series once you actually sat down and tried it. And it might be a similar... I mean, we know George R.R. Martin writes some incredibly dark stuff. I mean, the man can deliver a very unsettling narrative. So, I mean, even if you've got bad things can happen under blue skies. So, I would reserve judgment. Just hype responsibly, or enrage responsibly. I don't really know how to direct folks on this, but just take everything you're seeing with like a handful of salt, because it is not the way you were meant to see it, and it might not even be accurate in terms of the game's current state. We have no idea. This was not meant to be seen. Right. So,
by the way, that needs to be the game's tagline. Bad things happen under blue skies.
Yeah, right.
I was about to say, man, like that feels like an existentially relevant quote for life.
Right.
Not just Elden Ring, but just for life. I'm like, what? That has a nice ring to it. Nice.
Yeah. I'm gonna put that on our next GVG shirt.
I'll buy it.
I don't know if those are good vibes, but there you go.
Right. Just one more. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
No, I was going to basically mention what you're going to mention, so go for it.
Oh, okay. So just one more little bit of news about Elden Ring. The reason we haven't seen anything of it for the past almost 2 years is essentially, we now find out from a news story on VG 24/7, because of the pandemic. Big surprise. I don't think any of us are surprised, but apparently there have been some major issues with the transition to working remotely that have really negatively impacted Elden Ring's production and development. Unavoidable. It sucks, but are any of us surprised that that's the reason why?
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Exactly. So, but as Steve said, just try to take what you're seeing from this leaked footage with a grain of salt and maybe not render any final judgments. Because as he said, there may be blue skies, but bad things can happen under those blue skies. So I love that. I'm going to keep it in mind.
Saving that for later.
So good. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to our next news story, which is decidedly a lot more fun. So, I hate that this is UK exclusive, but Lyle Licensing... Sorry?
I said me too.
Yeah, so a UK licensing company called Lyle Licensing has secured the rights to make a Tetris waffle maker, among other myriad Tetris products, but the one we're talking about today that they announced is this waffle maker, and I want this thing. This seems like such an obvious idea. Like, it's such a good idea, but now that I think of it or see it, I'm like, why didn't I ever think of how perfect this is?
Does that mean you start measuring your
Huh?
breakfast serving in Tetrises?
I guess so, yeah.
Waffles.
I mean, this thing essentially makes tetrimino-shaped waffles, and I just think that's the coolest thing. I mean, there isn't that much more to say about it. It's just waffles, but in tetrimino shape. But at the same time, this is so damn cool.
Oh, man. What else is there to say, though? I mean, first of all, Ash, don't play with your food. There's that.
But I want to. They're literally Tetris blocks.
Just Basol off screen, like dropping the bits, like he's hurriedly trying to arrange them into a Tetris. And when he finally gets to Tetris, then he can actually eat his breakfast.
So the poor kid's crying. I don't know how to play Tetris, Mom.
Right.
Stop.
Or maybe
I need to eat.
Perhaps if you eat the waffles in the right order and the shapes in the right order, you clear lines in your stomach and you can just eat more. Or maybe
you reduce calories somehow. Yeah, it's like magic food.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, two things. One, to do this the right way, you need to have at least 5 different batters so you can color all your tetramino.
Yeah, you got to have the
waffles.
colored food.
Right.
2, our boy John Cartwright has to get and review this thing. If I'm reviewing chicken,
he's such a major
absolutely has
Tetris
to
guy.
review
It
the
has to be a
waffle
thing.
Yeah. I would love to have him do a guest review of this thing, because as much as I want it, I don't know if I wanted enough to import it from the UK for how much that would probably cost.
And you'd have to, let's not forget, you'd have to get a European step-down converter to make your breakfast.
Good point. There's that too. But I would love to see him pick one of these up. And I just want to know, are they reliably tetramino-shaped? I must know. This is also a really good idea. Imposter in the chat says, Puyo Puyo pancakes. I see a marketing team up in their future, man. They should do that. A Tetris waffle maker. and a Puyo Puyo pancake maker in a combined package. I think
only if we can get Tetris Attack French toast.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
but
there you go.
Panel or we
fitting,
can just go
fitting that
Panel de
fitting
Pan.
that Tetris Attack gets the best of the breakfast foods.
Panel de pancakes.
Oh,
It's done. Let's copyright it, trademark it, whatever the hell we got to do. Panel de pancakes.
Straight to your lips.
Nice.
That'll be
Put it
the
in the
tagline
books.
for that.
I had
Yeah,
to
I
look
love
for,
it.
I that was so good that I instinctively looked over to the chat to see if Azarin said it first.
I know, right? I know that sounds like something Azran would say, but no, that is an Ash Paulson original. I'm happy to admit. Panel de pancakes, though, man. Anyway, I think we pretty much said about all we can about tetrimino-shaped waffles.
just to stay a little bit on food topic, just to bring in a little extra thing, just to have a follow up to something we mentioned on Friday, the whole Shovel Knight Arby's thing. They released a trailer today. I don't know if you saw it, Ash.
I did.
I haven't yet. No.
Basically, I don't know if I've seen the toys themselves yet, but all the toys, which apparently there is 7 different ones, come with DLC for Shovel Knight, which changes the graphics to look like Arby's stuff. So the flying
you
rats
kidding me?
are like sandwiches and stuff like that, and yeah.
That is objectively the best Happy Meal prize ever.
Awesome.
So,
As if I needed another reason to play Shovel Knight yet again.
and I think it's starting now. So you got to go to Arby's, get the kids meal, and you can get the get the Shovel Knight DLC. That's right, Doodle. The flying rats become drinks, and the tops pop off to after you hit them.
That's so good.
That's well. As I said, then I will indeed be stealing my roast beef to go get something, get a kids meal from Arby's, and get one of these DLC codes because. That is such a yacht club thing to do, and I love that they have fun with cheat codes like that. But that's just so cool, and that just makes me want to go play Shovel Knight for like the billionth time, as if I haven't already played it enough. But let's go ahead and move on to the next story, which involves our frequent appearance in our news stories, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa, who, in a new interview with Nikkei, he does a lot of these interviews with Nikkei, he has commented on what he learned from prior Nintendo presidents, Hiroshi Yamauchi and, of course, Satoru Iwata, and as well as Kimishima, and discusses his approach to leadership of Nintendo. Now, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to read through this fully, but I've skimmed it, and he says essentially that what he's trying to do, with Nintendo under his stewardship, is essentially continue what Kimishima did during kind of the interim, his term as interim president after Iwata's passing, and profits are bottom line, and he wants to keep the company running without Iwata's unique personality. He's like, nobody can replace who Iwata was and the way that he did things, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to do things in a way that doesn't require that kind of approach. Have any of you had a chance to look through this anymore?
Not me, no.
I have not looked too much. It looks like it's all been from the same interview, but apparently just getting translated over time and more coming out about it. And I mean, it makes sense. He can't do the same. He can't be Iwata, and he's got to do his own thing. He did learn a lot, but he mentions in here how where was it? He says, I learned a lot from Mr. Iwata, but I shouldn't say anything specific. I didn't like the fact that there were still people at Nintendo saying, I learned from Mr. Iwata. I'm sure Iwata himself would admit it, so I keep that in mind.
And he's probably right about that, I would think. Yeah. Yeah, so. I mean, obviously Iwata was an incredibly humble man, and he probably wouldn't want either his successor or everyone at the company going around and just singing his praises. He didn't seem like that kind of guy. I think one of the core sentences here from this interview comes toward the end, where Furukawa says, "The core principles behind our finances are to ensure the company continues." Which, I mean, can you have much more of a financially conservative response than that? They want to make money. They got to keep the business going, so they're doing what they got to do to make that happen. I think it's pretty much that straightforward.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It sounded like you had something to say, Steve. Sorry.
Oh no, I was reading through this as we were discussing,
Cool.
just because I didn't get a chance to before the show. I was out of the house until just before we went live, and one of the sentences that strikes me, and I don't love it, but it says, this is from Furukawa. He says, Mr. Iwata's successor, Mr. Kimishima, took over as president in the emergency state following Iwata's sudden death. He worked on changing the way the company works so that it can be run without Iwata's charisma. My plan is to proceed down that route. And that just... Iwata was a singular person. Like, he could never be replaced. He was an original, but...
Right.
Ah, man, it stings to just read it in black and white. Like, yeah, I'm going to keep doing what Kimishima was doing, because as well as Nintendo is doing, I mean, Kimishima's leadership was certainly not the most exciting thing, you know?
Right.
Kimishima always looked
I
angry.
Looked like the final boss of a video game.
Yeah, he did.
I have only one Kimishima story, and it's my favorite thing about him. E3 2016, the year before the Switch came out, I just had the best luck in the world. I had run into Shigeru Miyamoto in a hallway, got a picture with him. I had run into Eiji Aonuma, got a picture with him, and Charles Martinet, and got a picture with him. And I was in a group text with my friends that I went to E3 with, and I kept sending them these just ridiculously lucky selfies that I was taking, and my friends were so mad. And suddenly, I'm standing in line to get food, and one of my friends texts me a selfie he took with Kimishima. And Kimishima looks angry. and I was joking. I was like, oh, man, he looks super mad. You probably pissed him off. And my friend texts back, and he goes, oh, I definitely did. I found him in the bathroom and waited for him.
Oh, man.
My friend saw
Don't do
Kimishima in the bathroom and then just waited like by the sink, and he's like, hey, can I take a picture with you? While
could not
Kimishima's
do
literally washing his hands.
No, I couldn't do it. I could not.
Nope.
As much as I'd want
Couldn't at least
one,
wait by
I
the
could not
exit
do
of the
that.
bathroom?
Yeah,
I know, right?
Wait till
That's
he leaves
what
the
I was saying.
bathroom.
My friend Ben Bertoli has a selfie that he took with Kimishima in a men's room.
Oh,
at
you just
E3, which
man,
is-
even outed your friend.
So
You
funny.
I bet.
So, quick
Oh,
question.
man.
What was the exact quote about finances? What was that he said? The current president?
Let's
Oh, here,
see.
the core principles.
Oh, the core
behind our-
principles.
yeah.
Oh, got it.
Behind
Go
our
ahead.
finance are to ensure the company continues. I've been in the game console business for over 30 years, and with good times also comes the bad. As the times change, our management will make level-headed decisions, changing what needs to be changed in the company.
oh, okay.
I mean, that's saying a whole lot of nothing, really. That's like the
Yeah.
definition of PR speak.
we'll just it's like we just
yeah.
do what we think we got to do.
Yeah. At first, I thought
Yeah.
it was something more like direct as like, we're here to make money. I thought I heard that earlier, but
Right.
I'm glad that wasn't
Adam-
the case.
Yeah.
Because I was
Adam
going to say,
Davis
I
in
can
the
only...
chat.
That's a huge
Oh,
shift
okay.
in tone from something like Reggie saying, we're about, like, you know, kicking ass, taking names, and making games, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the
A
future,
little
we
bit.
get
It's just
we
like,
hear about to
open
make
up the
money.
wallet, kid.
Yeah.
Give me your lunch
Adam
money.
Davis in the chat says they respect Furukawa massively for saying that, and I'm not sure if you mean that quote or the one
It was
about
the
running
one about
company in a
Iwata.
way that doesn't.
Yeah, the
that
one
doesn't
about Iwata.
require- yeah, that's what I thought.
My
and
whole
you know
thing
what?
is-
I do too. Even if it isn't necessarily my first choice as an approach, I would rather Furukawa focus on doing what he does best, and if that isn't being charismatic, I think him trying to spend energy on faking that would be worse than just focusing on leading the company, in terms of finances and business and making sure that Nintendo continues to do well.
Yeah, but you know, for the most part, with a few exceptions like him holding a bushel of bananas, most of Iwata's presence was just being passionate about the games that were coming out. Like, you could just tell that he was very proud of the content that he was going to provide for his fans. It's weird that the current president can't share that similar energy, in my opinion. I know that there's, like, again, towards the end, there was a lot of, like, he became a Muppet at one point and stuff like that. And I could see someone wanting to step away from that because they can't do that genuinely with a sense of joy, you know? But I mean, like, generally speaking, most of how I remember Iwata was just him enthusiastically talking about the content that he was providing to Nintendo fans. So it is a little strange to me that torch can't be carried, at least to that extent. My hope, which doesn't sound like it was addressed here in this interview, is that he at least can find other people to do that in Iwata's place. But, like, I just don't want it to become this sterile, here's a Twitter, like, trailer, with little to no
he did host
fanfare.
a direct himself this time.
What's that?
Furukawa hosted the recent Direct himself.
Wait,
okay.
Shinya Takahashi who did it.
Was it Takahashi? I've lost track. I'm so sorry if that was the case.
I think it was. I could be wrong, but I thought it was Takahashi who did it.
Sorry, I thought it was Furukawa, but
I was wrong. It might have been. No. It was Takahashi.
Well, sorry.
Yeah. That's okay. And I was actually going to mention, even if that isn't something that Furukawa does well, we have seen, the most recent Direct was hosted at least somewhat by Takahashi, and there are also other people like Yoshiaki Koizumi who are also incredibly charismatic and may carry on that torch in Iwata's stead in a way that Furukawa can't. So just because Furukawa himself isn't taking that passionate gamer's approach like Iwata did, because as we know, Iwata was both a businessman and a gamer, and a developer, and so many other things. It may be that he can have some of the folks under him, like Takahashi, kind of fill that role in his stead.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Well, we'll see how it goes, but either way, as long as Furukawa can keep Nintendo going and keep riding this roller coaster of success that began with the Switch, then we're all better off for it, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to some interesting Square Enix related news and get that up on screen. So, Forever Entertainment, who recently developed and released the Panzer Dragoon remake, has apparently signed a deal with Square Enix to develop quote-unquote several remakes for the company. And my imagination in terms of what this could mean or lead to is exploding right now. Give me Parasite Eve. Give me Brave Fencer Musashi.
No.
Xenogears. What? No. I want it all, man.
I'm sorry, Ash. I am not excited by this because I've not heard anything good that these guys have released. Fear Effect, not great. They were supposed to bring that back. Didn't hear any good thing about that. From everything I heard about from John for the Panzer Dragoon remake, not great. I'm like... Well, who do you want? What game do you want butchered by them? It seems is the case. Like they may surprise us. Who knows? But they're not the best track record.
I played Panzer Dragoon Remake just because I was curious, and of course, I'm not coming at it from as informed a perspective as John because I didn't play the original. But I could sense kind of what had been changed from the original, at least in terms of a visual sense. And I found that it wasn't horrible like I was expecting. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Wasn't the best remake ever, but I don't know. I'm willing to at least keep my mind open about this. That's all.
My problem is, and the thing that keeps flashing in my mind when I think about this is, I want a Chrono Trigger remake.
Yes.
But I don't want it like this. I don't want it like this. It has to be perfect. I will still buy it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a schlub. I will buy a terrible remake if they do it. But I just, man, these guys, like, who at Square was like, yep, the guys that butchered Panzer Dragoon, those are my dudes. Let's give them whatever they want. I grew up playing Panzer Dragoon. I had a Saturn. It was one of the games. My dad saw it and he's like, oh, there's a dragon on the cover. That's cool. Let's get it for the boy. And so I played a bunch of it, and yeah, man, I know it probably feels pretty okay on its face to somebody who didn't play the original, but compared to the original, it is so unfaithful and bad. And it's when I think about like how they did Panzer Dragoon dirty, I'm like, I can't have them doing that to Chrono Trigger. I cannot. For the love of God, please don't let them near Chrono Trigger. It is the one and only time in history I will hope someone doesn't remake Chrono Trigger. I would rather like a group of fans with Unreal Engine do it, honestly. But,
I mean, I don't know who has to do it, but I just want somebody to take the engine from Dragon Quest XI and just do a Chrono Trigger remake.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know who
it's weird to me that they didn't use that engine for the Secret of Mana or Secret of Trials of Mana remake. I'm surprised because like they did their own thing and it was still functional, but could have been as gorgeous as it looked on the,
like real-time action?
Yeah, this is gonna sound weird.
Okay.
I want Arc System Works to make me a Chrono Trigger remake.
Ooh, yeah, because they have that anime art style down like
exactly.
tight.
They're the only ones that have perfectly recreated Toriyama's art style in a 3D environment.
That
Well,
give me
I
that.
do think I do think a Dragon Quest XI-esque take on Chrono Trigger could be legendary. It could be incredible. That's personally the way I'd want to see it done.
see.
As well.
You know what RPG series Arc System Works would really bond with well with their with their usual fighting game style. Let's give them a Tales of game.
Oh yeah,
They
could do it for sure.
At least have them do the battle system and somebody else take care of the rest. Because my God, that would be interesting.
I would just
Yeah.
love the return of like crazy flashy spells and combo attacks and stuff. I keep thinking about how good the final attacks look in Dragon Ball Fighters. I want an RPG where like your massive summons and spells look that awe-inspiring.
Right.
Yeah, let me,
Right.
let
That
me
would be
see
really cool.
Bahamut blast a beam off into space. You know?
I mean,
Oh man.
what you want to see Bahamut wreck some wreck some things. Watch the opening cutscene to Final Fantasy 14. He is
Oh.
Oh yeah, yeah.
that
the
it's like 8 years old and it's still gorgeous.
The wait for the PS5 version is too long and simultaneously not long enough because I have too many things to do.
yeah.
If I had to guess, though, based on these guys' track record, Parasite Eve seems like the best bet for what they would grab because they've done Fear Effect, they've done Panzer Dragoon, they lean more towards realistic games and not so much the anime type games. So I can't see them doing Chrono Trigger themselves. So I think
Well, no, my guess is Tomb Raider, the original Tomb Raider.
Oh, that's an
Maybe.
interesting. So they might be actually remaking some of the Western side of Square's games.
Yeah, that's
Could
what I
do
was
that.
thinking.
I saw somebody in the chat say Gex, so maybe Gex.
So, I definitely get the trepidation for sure, but it seems to me that the reason maybe this is being done is because Square themselves are completely stretched thin already with Final Fantasy everything. Right? They're dedicated to 16. They're now remaking 7 in 2 different ways for completely different platforms, and they're of course developing a whole other slate of FF7 related projects. So if this is the only way that we can get potentially get remakes of some of their classics from the PS1 and SNES days, I want to remain open to it only because I don't think Square Enix themselves have the bandwidth to do it. So while I do get the trepidation with Forever Entertainment specifically, maybe it's possible that they can churn out some really exciting stuff here. I mean, my guess is that Square Enix will probably impose more quality control than Sega did with Panzer Dragoon. That's just my guess based on the difference in output between Sega and Square Enix. Square Enix seems to lean a little more heavily onto the polished side of things. So I'm willing to keep my hopes open, at least.
What were your thoughts on Trials of Mana? Did you like it a lot, or?
Yes, I did. That's exactly the rating I gave it, I think. Either like it or I think I gave it a lot. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great remake. And yeah, I mean, there is the Mana team, and they did do their own in-house remake of Trials. So clearly they can do it. But this seems to be more about a slate of remakes instead of just one. And so who knows?
So Griff is asking you, Ash, what about Balan Wonderworld with Square Enix high level of
Good point.
quality
Good
control?
point. Although I would argue that it scratches a fever dream itch that I haven't had a game scratch in a long time.
My God.
But that's a good point. That with Balan Wonderworld specifically, yeah, very good point. But I feel like I'm going to somehow end up enjoying that game, despite its many issues. I feel like I'm going to.
I think you're going to end up enjoying it because of its issues.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
so. Because again, it scratches that very specific Saturn era itch that no other game is even trying to, reproduce. So, well, no other game did since Sonic Mania, really, which was essentially trying to be a Saturn era 2D Sonic game that we never got. But yeah, I mean that's definitely true. There are certainly quality control issues with Balan Wonderland. So if this comes back to bite me in the ass and the Parasite Eve remake comes out and it's terrible, then what are you going to do? But I still like the possibility of getting some of these remakes than the impossibility. And I feel like if they didn't license these out, that it probably would never happen. So
Well, I admire your optimism, and I hope that you're right about everything, Ash, because I don't think any of us want it to be
I mean, I have
That'd
to
be
be
nice.
optimistic because that's just kind of. I'd rather be optimistic than pessimistic, but I also understand. I'm not calling people out who are pessimistic about this. I understand that, but I just want so badly for some of these, especially PS1 era games, to be remade. I don't want them to touch Chrono Trigger because it's Chrono Trigger, my favorite game of all time. But if we can get a Parasite Eve remake out of this, maybe it'll be good. Who knows?
Yeah.
So
Fair.
We'll see.
yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to another Nintendo news story, which is not as exciting, unfortunately. Let's go ahead and bring that up on screen. And this is kind of reiterating what we already know, but just in case you thought Nintendo might be backpedaling just a little bit on Nintendoomsday, they're not. And they want to remind you that a bunch of stuff is ending and going offline and ceasing production on March 31st. So Mario 35, still gone. Super Mario 3D All-Stars, still being delisted. All this stuff is still happening, unfortunately. But on top of all that, on top of everything they're already getting rid of, Nintendo has just announced that they are going to also stop repairing 3DS and 3DS XL systems on the same day.
in celebration of Mario 35th.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Nintendo Japan says that this is due to the difficulty in securing the necessary parts for repair. I don't know. I mean, that might be part of the truth, but I have a feeling that's not the whole truth.
I would imagine that likely the problem is one. Yeah, costs are going to go up as these products are no longer being mass manufactured. I mean, certain things, would probably be very easy to continue to replace, but that system on a chip that powered the 3DS is likely no longer being made by anybody, because who would use it? It is, by technological standards, in a relic. I mean, what's in the Switch is old. I mean, when you think about the fact that the chip that powers the Nintendo Switch was 2 years old when it came out. So when the Switch came out. So the Nintendo Switch right now is running essentially a 7-year-old CPU. So the 3DS, I mean, or wait, was it 3DS and 3DS XL?
Yeah, 3DS and 3DS XL. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, what, over a decade old in terms of, far older than a decade old in terms of that system on chip. So convincing people to continue manufacturing it just for replacement parts, they probably at some point want to put the squeeze on Nintendo to keep the, hey, if you want us to keep making these replacement parts, give us some of that Nintendo Switch money, huh? Like, we know you're doing fine. So, it is sad because I love the 3DS, and I still, I mean, the new Nintendo 3DS, like the mini version or the compact, they called it in Japan, is still one of my favorite Nintendo designs of all time. I mean, it is just a beautiful console, and
it is.
But its time in the sun is over. The Switch is the one.
We all remember the year when everybody was like, "Why isn't this on Switch?"
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, it's time. I think people have had an appropriate amount of time to enjoy these, but that does mean that the secondhand market for 3DSs is about to explode. Once Nintendo stops refurbishing these things themselves, they are going to become so valuable to folks that have working ones still.
Yeah. I guess in that context, the 3DS and 3DS XL repairs ending is probably the least onerous thing that's kind of happening on March 31st.
Yeah, the other stuff doesn't make sense. At least. Sense.
So just as a succinct reminder to everybody who might want to get in on any of this before the end of the month, Super Mario 3D All-Stars is being delisted. Super Mario Bros. 35 will no longer be playable. It's going to be taken off, which just hurts my soul because I love that game so much. Me too. Game & Watch Super Mario Brothers also will be going out of production. And also, I believe Fire Emblem and the Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light is also going to be delisted as well.
Yeah, I remember Mario was in there for a second, right? I think he was, or he was at least mentioned. So there you go. There's your reason why you're not going to get Fire Emblem anymore. So to touch on the 3DS thing, like I said, it just kind of makes sense. It just goes with the waves. If we're an ideal world, we still have Nintendo Power Hotline to this day, but sadly, some things have to get phased out. I get it. The Mario stuff, it's so clear that someone was at a board meeting and whoever became the new management behind big executive decisions said, we're nearsighted now. We need big sales in these quarters. Give me big sales now. And so people had to brainstorm on how to boost sales for a specific quarter to meet a quarter goal or something. And this is probably the end product of that. I don't like it. It's very nearsighted, but it is what it is. Thankfully, I'm in a position where I have disposable income to get any of these products at my leisure. My heart goes out to those people that have to save up money to get a Mario game or something, or find a Nintendo Switch system or afford a Nintendo Switch system. And by the time they finally get said system, they're not going to be able to play Mario 35. Those are the people I think about.
Yeah.
And so, I just hope we don't see more of this in the future. We're seeing a lot of it right now, but I'm hoping this is like a temporary set of, direction for Nintendo, and that they can see the blowback. Yeah. Hopefully they don't focus too much on the financial reports, because those were fantastic, as I heard, and more so on how fans are taking this sort of news. Because I don't think anybody on our side is saying this is great. Getting it's great, but the temporary thing is not. Yeah.
Limited time. We love that.
If they wanted to repackage Mario 35 into a more fully featured retail product, I'd be happy to buy it.
Same.
Absolutely. I'm going to miss the hell out of this game. It's kind of almost become kind of a de-stress routine for me, just to pop in, play a game of Mario 35, and pop back out. I'm gonna miss it. And even my wife has said she's gonna miss me playing it, because she's just so used to me just kind of just dipping into a game, playing, and then I'm gonna miss it. So maybe people's interest and love for the game will spur Nintendo to actually consider making something like it into a full retail product.
I hope this was just a beta. Just like you said, I hope it's a beta, and we get a package of Mario 2, 3, and Super. And not only that, but we also get features where you can play directly with friends. That would be amazing.
Oh man,
yeah, that would be.
Cool.
There's definitely a lot lacking with the initial package, as great as it was. That I'm hoping this is just sort of like a test the servers and everything else to something grander. Maybe
that'd be really nice.
Fourth quarter we'll see something like that. That would be great. But
and the concept would work so well for Zelda 35 too, like a top-down Zelda 1 style of the same kind of game. That could work so well, and I
would
feel
destroy
so
people
much
with that.
I
know that game like the back of my hand. Bring it on.
Nice. I'd love to, man. I wish we could play Mario 35 together. That's one of those things, like you said. It's the game is great at its core, but there are some polish issues and feature issues that they would really need to address for a full release.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, I hope by that same token, I hope they're all right, we translated this previously Japanese-only game and bringing it out to the States. Let's do it again with this other game and get something else that we never got. Technically, we're getting that thanks to the Famicom Detective Club, but more old school stuff.
Super excited for that.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, same. But
what they should do. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to mention what was the game with the guy with the blue hair, and the thing on top, and
I know
it was. What game was that? That was a Nintendo exclusive. They had a trophy of it in Melee.
Oh, gosh.
Genealogy of the Holy War. That would be a great one for Nintendo to move on to next. Absolutely.
Right.
Someone just mentioned that in the
chat.
They
might be doing that as a Fire Emblem Echoes remake. If they're going to keep that series, if it is.
I would love that, honestly.
That would be amazing.
Right.
Mother 3, of course.
Griff says.
Well, I was going to say
Is that who you're thinking of? Griff says Stinko Man. She says, is that who you're thinking of?
I don't think it was called. I don't even know if that's a real thing.
I don't either. It's a real thing, but it's not. Yeah, I don't know.
I'll look it up.
Apparently. Oh my god. Yeah. I feel like I just got trolled.
What they should do is the day after Nintendoomsday, since it's April 1st, they should release Mother 3, but not tell anybody that they're only doing it for a day. It's only on sale for one day, and then just delist it.
Crash
and
the
then say
server.
nothing about it. Right? Oh man, I wish. Hey, that would be better than the probably never getting it all, I guess. Also, as Classy Mudkip and Jenny G remind us in the chat, March 31st also marks the end of being able to upload Mario Maker 1 levels. So Mario Maker 1's Wii U online support will be ending as well. Although that makes sense. Though, on the Wii U front, we did have some breaking news early that a few people in the chat reported on, and that is that during this show, Nintendo dropped a new Wii U system update. So...
What?
The heck?
Right? I don't know. I'm sure it's a stability update.
Yeah.
But...
If I had to guess, it would be something to combat people adding homebrew to their Wii U, because
probably
the Wii U has picked up in popularity as kind of a jack of all trades for emulation. I mean, honestly,
that's true.
And now that pretty much every single good Wii U game is on the Switch, I've thought about just hacking mine and loading it up with stuff, because it would be great to have a console that was kind of capable of running, virtual console stuff that was purchased legitimately, as well as Wii, GameCube, stuff like that. Man, it would be an all-in-one kind of Nintendo retro machine, which would be really nice.
Right.
But I also don't think I'm going to unmothball my Wii U anytime soon.
Exactly. She says, a few people in the chat, including Octopuppet and Joseph Rutkin, are saying maybe you meant Takamaru from the mysterious Murasame Castle.
I did not, but I actually just found out what it was. It was Shin Onigashima.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Shin Onigashima, right. I do remember that being
that
a trophy in Smash. Yeah.
And the characters' names were Dombe and Hikari, so...
Right.
Those two.
I think they're spirits.
It was a text-based adventure.
They're spirits as well. I remember seeing that. Bring that stuff that we got those spirits for in Smash. I had to really look up, like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Right.
That'd be really cool.
I'd love to play that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Same.
I would love it, like Derek said. I love the idea of Nintendo, once or twice a year picking a game that never made it west and just localizing it, and throwing it up for sale or however they want to release it. But that would be really, really cool. I love that we get some kind of like Japan-only games on NSO, but I'd be more than willing to just outright buy them. It's cool to get these pieces of Nintendo history that the in the US we just missed out on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I mean, I could go on for an hour about this. When the Fire Emblem thing got announced, like, I wasn't even a Fire Emblem hardcore fan or I was like a very casual consumer of the series. But when they announced that, I had probably more excitement than a lot of hardcore fans, just because of the principle that it's like a game that was a relic in time that I thought would be lost forever, and suddenly Nintendo brought it back. So yeah, Nintendo, please keep doing that, because I will buy that. I will talk about it on Twitter for days. I will be your free advertising platform. I love that idea.
5 more Fire Emblem games we never got in the West. So bring those.
Right.
Absolutely.
There's a really good remake of Fire Emblem 3 that never came to came out after Shadow Dragon on DS that never got over because Shadow Dragon did so poorly here. Bring that over.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah, there's so
or
much
just the one that it started off from. Give us 3. I was playing that. That was really good.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the one that created a ton of fans for the series. So it would be very wise to bring over the game that seemed to have made a whole bunch of Japanese fans and give it to the West, So
I mean, the fact that they're willing to do this whole thing with Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light at all suggests that maybe they're open to doing other certain canned localization projects. Hopefully, we'll see. Yeah. But I would love to see Nintendo do more things like that, because even if I'm not a hardcore Fire Emblem fan, I was delighted when they made that announcement. It's just such a cool thing for them to do. So hopefully they'll
Tetra Trackers, guys. We're ready for it.
There you go.
There you go.
Before we move on, Mario 8A in the chat has a video suggestion for you, she says. They say that you should do a boundary break on Super Nintendo World, and now, once it opens in the US, do a region break on it.
Oh my gosh.
Not sure how that would work legally. I don't know if you can do that without getting kicked out of the park, but...
All right, I could do a region break for sure. Boundary break might be a little tougher. I go in there with a drone, and I feel like very quickly they track me down. But
probably. Yeah. I do like the thought of it, though. I like the
idea. Oh, absolutely, I do too. Let's get sanctioned. Yeah,
right. I love to. Yeah. Okay, well, let's go ahead and take on our last news story of the day, which is a bit of good news to end on. Let's get that up on screen. And that is that Tails' voice actor, Colleen O'Shaughnessey, has hinted that she and Tails, quote-unquote, are not finished yet. So that could mean any number of things. Of course, she was the voice of Tails at the end of the Sonic movie as well. I believe it's already been confirmed that she's not returning for Sonic 2. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I don't know. I've not heard anything about
okay,
that.
maybe it hasn't, but either way,
they haven't really said any
she's...
casting news.
Huh?
They haven't really said any casting news, but it would be cool if they kept continuity because they just kept her as Tails for Sonic 2, especially with her voice acting Tails at the end.
Exactly. It only makes sense. Unfortunately, as we've talked about in the past, as we've seen, sometimes companies want to hire big name actors, not just voice actors whose names are otherwise not, attention grabbing, right? And I hope that's not I hope that's not the approach they take here, because to me, Colleen is Tails, and when Tails speaks, I expect to hear her voice. And but I am glad that whatever this means, she isn't finished with Tails. So maybe she's not in the movie, maybe she is, but it sounds as though maybe she'll have some sort of ongoing role in maybe a game or something. I don't know, but I'm happy to hear it.
It could be one of those things where maybe because they already had her in the first one, they anticipate a sort of Optimus Prime situation where, say what you will about the Michael Bay movies, they made sure to have Peter Cullen there at all times because of fan outcries. Like, Peter Cullen is Optimus Prime. You cannot recast him. So maybe it's
it makes me wonder. I don't know. Like, it seems like it's only Roger. What is it? Roger Craig Smith? Did I get the name right?
Yes.
The original voice of the last voice of Sonic. It turned out that he quit and wasn't.
Right. He walked away.
He wasn't asked to be a part of the productions anymore. So. No, it's a bad idea to speculate. But
yeah,
I just think about the drama that would be in place if the voice of Tails traditionally is asked to be brought on, but the voice of Sonic wasn't. I'm not saying that that's the reason for anything, but that is kind of imbalanced as far as the original cast goes.
Well, it sounds as though we reported on this in a recent episode of TNT that Roger Craig Smith kind of came out and provided a little clarity on the situation and made it seem like he actually chose to walk away, that he wasn't fired or let go. But he did make it sound as though that he chose to walk away because of things that he either wasn't comfortable with or just problems that he had with the way things were being handled. I don't know. But either way, it sounds as though he chose to walk away and that Sega didn't make that happen.
Well,
so
my comment remains then, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so weird the other voice actors updated on their statuses at the same time as well, though. So
what is it?
Well, all the other voice actors were coming out and saying whether they were still there or not, and a lot of them, I think, stepped away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm not sure. I can't quite remember. It's been so many weeks now.
Wait, no, the voice of Dr. Eggman's staying.
Oh yeah, Eggman's still there, but I'm talking more like Amy Rose.
Okay.
Yeah, Amy Rose's voice actress is apparently out, but we don't know the context behind that, if she chose to walk away or if she was replaced.
Gotcha.
So it's weird. Every character's voice actor seems to be in a slightly different position, but of course that's based on what we know, and I'm sure there's plenty we don't know. We do have a couple of cursed takes in the chat, with Skull Kid Tiger saying Danny DeVito is Cream. It's Cream the Rabbit. As well as Drew A saying Danny DeVito for Tails in Sonic 2. And Shadow Imposter saying Danny DeVito is Cheese. I don't know what it is with Sonic and Danny DeVito.
It's more of a carryover from Detective Pikachu, I feel.
Yeah, that's what it... Yeah.
Plus, Danny DeVito in anything is pure gold.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Drew A says, I want Ash to replace Sonic's VA. And hey, if Sega wants to hire me, I'm game, man. Of course. Thank you for that vote of confidence. But yeah, if they want to hire me, Sega, I'm here. And
I know you can do that voice, obviously. Ash. I've heard it before.
Oh, you sure have. Yeah. All right. Anyway, on that note, I believe we have reached the end of the show. But as always, before we head out, Shesez, please tell our lovely audience where they can find you, man.
You can find me on YouTube. All you have to do is just type in Boundary Break in the search engine, and you'll be presented with a ton of episodes of Boundary Break. And it's a show where we can basically take the camera anywhere we want to find secrets and new discoveries to some of our favorite games. What was that?
Whoa.
That was a train?
I have no idea.
That was a really loud horn honking on my end.
Someone's a fan out there. Yeah. Woo!
Yeah.
All right.
At least no siren today. We've been having lots of sirens on my end that have been interrupting the recordings, and thankfully that didn't happen today. But awesome.
We had a
She
whole
says,
hour of
man,
world
you're
peace.
obviously one of my dearest friends in this industry, and I wish you nothing but the best with Boundary Break and Region Break. And thank you again for being our first ever return special guest.
Again, thank you, Ash. I feel the same about you and everyone else here at GVG. And honestly, it was a blast to come back. Ask me anytime you want, you guys. I love being here. So, thank you so much for making me your second guest. Again, that's amazing. Thanks.
Of course.
Awesome. Well, as always, we have to thank every single one of our amazing patrons for helping to make Good Vibes Gaming a success and keep us going. But of course, a special thank you to our patrons at the producer tier and above for helping to make today's news tonight happen, because without your input and your support, it would not be happening. But also, as always, an extra special thank you to all of our patrons at the executive producer tier and above. And those awesome, awesome people include, here we go, Jared Edinger, Jonathan Belmare, Brandon Bovia, Rob Arman X, Dan and Twistle, Z Patty, Hyrule Hermit, Sky Blue Flames, Adam O'Sullivan, Richard Herrera, Michael Phone, Floating Mew, Aiko Carroll, Christopher, The D-Pad, Vesmio, Waffle King, Nick Waterman, Kitty Kong Fax, Angel Martinez, Vedran Vedhotik, Makalau, John, Joshua Hunter, Evernight Studio, Benny Yao, Shadow the Cat, and Alessia, who just recently upgraded their pledge to the executive producer tier. So thank you so much for joining the EP squad, Alessia. Azran127, Kinrule09, Jake Pelka, Geller, Shiny Turkey, Joseph Rutkin, Titus Malvolio, Charlie Bird, Lucky Wonderfish, Top Dog 23100, Young Ben Kenobi, Charles Zaz, Douglas Chamix, Andrew Medeiros, Aurum, Brady Power, Phantom 23, Scott Barber, Patrick Harrison, Rocks the Cat, Loyal Dingo, Flaming Highwayman, Sean Garrett, The Legend of Groose, I love saying that, Eddie B, Kai Ed, Kit Fisto, West Egg, Master Lynx, Sean Davis, Deaneth, Jackson Jordan, Michael McCaw, Matthew Wong, Ashish Joshi, Goran Amber, Straight Lace, Hoobie, Wolf X Blake and Moon Macarons, Kane, Captain Finlandia, 60 Minutes and 60 Seconds, The Game Orb, Dano the Artist, Synchro Lord, Brainchild, Rosa Pardo Bowling.
Hi, Mom. I'm sorry, Mom. I love you, Mom.
Dark Umi 87, The Flying Tacos, Scuff 196, Skull Kid Tiger, AJB Cool, and finally Jason Uloa. And of course, remember that you too can become a patron over at patreon.com/gvgaming, where you can check out all of our different tiers. But if you would like to interact with us and our rotating panel of special guests during the show, you can do that by joining the live audience tier for $5 a month. But regardless, whether you support us on Patreon or not, or you just drop a like and a subscribe here on YouTube, we appreciate your support all the same. We truly love each and every one of you, and we will see you on Wednesday for our next episode of Today's News Tonight. Until then, everybody, good night and good vibes.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.